Hi, I'm Dr. Mark Rosenberg, and I'd like to welcome you all to being at this wonderful event, the Women's Health Initiative Foundation fundraiser event. And I would like to give a special thanks to Lynn Hogreff and the Happy Hormone Cottage for sponsoring and hosting this event. I wish I can be with you in person, but I thank you for being here to listen to my story. So here's how my story began. In my former life, I was an emergency physician, and I was most recently the assistant director of a local emergency department. And one day my mother came in complaining of pleuritic chest pain, meaning chest pain when she took a deep breath. And that day I unfortunately diagnosed her with metastatic non-small cell lung cancer to liver, spleen, both adrenal glands, and left hip. So I took my mother to where I did my training, both undergraduate as well as medical school, and I was so disappointed to find that in the past 50 years, we have minimally improved the survival of the advanced stage lung cancers. So the folks at the University Hospital said, "Yeah, I'm sorry, Dr. Rosenberg, but we really haven't done a whole lot in the past 50 years, and if you do standard chemotherapy, your mom may live about 6 months, and if you do nothing, maybe about 4 months." I was amazed. My expertise at the time was only in emergency medicine, but it was so hard for me to accept the fact that in the past 50 years, with all of our oncologic research, that we have minimally extended survival. So that's when my journey started. I don't think I slept for the next 3 weeks. I stayed at the computer day and night. And I looked at many alternative methods. I even contacted a Dr. Ralph Moss. Many of you may be familiar with him. He's a famous PhD journalist who travels the world looking for different therapies, both conventional and non-conventional therapies, and reports on the effectiveness of these therapies. One of the modalities we came across was high-dose intravenous vitamin C. And my mother was willing to do just IV vitamin C. She, of course, refused chemotherapy. And she ended up living 11 months, nearly double the time that they allotted to her by doing chemotherapy. Well, my mother did pass away after 11 months, but it didn't stop my journey. It only propelled my journey from there. And I continued to do cancer research, and I started treating patients through alternative techniques in my office. And then one day I got a call from a neurosurgeon who is also a cancer scientist at a major university. And he was treating his son with a terminal disease called neuroblastoma. That's a brain tumor. His son was 7 years old. And the neurosurgeon said, "I'm calling you because I'm out of weapons." He said, "I think I've kept my son alive with what I'm doing in my research in my lab for the last 2 years, but I'm out of weapons. So I'm calling you because I heard you're a good thinker, and I wanted to know if you had any ideas." And so I said I did have an idea, and he agreed to fund my research in his lab as long as we could use his own son's cancer cells, and we did. And we did an in vitro study, meaning in the laboratory in a petri dish, and the study was successful, but unfortunately his son died before we got a chance to treat. So what I did after that is I started experimenting out of the country. And I started treating individuals who had terminal cancer. And the big question is, why would I have to leave the country to do that? Well, this is the reason. In most countries, if you are deemed terminal, meaning the standard of care has no options for you, you and your physician can experiment and try different techniques, whatever you can possibly come up with to improve the survival. Unfortunately, in the United States, we do have laws such as the Compassionate Use Clause or law and the Right to Try law, but for the most part, it's in name only, meaning you still cannot use whatever you want. It must be approved by an advisor to the FDA, an oncology advisor, as well as pass a phase 1 pharmaceutical trial. So my technique was refined out of this country, and then I treated the first individual who you will all be seeing later today. She had stage 4 endometrial carcinoma, And we used this technique that I call pH manipulation therapy, and within 3 months, we achieved complete remission. Unfortunately, this patient who you will be seeing later, she did relapse after 4 years. She had complete remission for 4 years, but we are once again controlling her disease. So I came back to this country and I've continued to use these techniques, and I continue to research. I was eventually asked to become the program director for the first and only Integrative Cancer Fellowship, which is very exciting. In this Integrative Cancer Fellowship, I speak with other speakers or lecturers, to include those from Harvard, MD Anderson, Boston College, as well as physicians and scientists from all over the world, to include Asia, the Middle East, South America, Australia. And it's an exciting time for me because we get to put our minds together. We get to collaborate. Because unfortunately, nobody has the time to research every technique. So when we get to share our ideas, it's extremely helpful. Now, in addition to all these projects that I've been working on, I pursued my research in what I call pH manipulation therapy, which refers to preying on the fact that many cancers feed on sugar. And when they process sugar through a mechanism called glycolysis, the end product of what they make is lactic acid. And so the technique I was working on was inhibiting the cancer's ability to get rid of its own acid. Now, my team and I have been working with 2 universities in the United States, and we have developed a novel molecule that is a very potent inhibitor of the efflux of lactic acid. The mouse studies that we've done are extremely exciting, and I'm excited because I think this can be helpful in just about every cancer that I can think of. In my office now, in my practice, we use many different techniques to treat cancer. As I often tell my patients, if the kitchen sink will help, we'll throw the kitchen sink in there. As probably most scientists are aware, I don't believe that cancer will be cured by any single drug or any single modality. Cancer has an incredible ability to mutate and adjust to its environment, regardless of how harsh the environmental conditions are. And because of that fact, we need to use multiple modalities simultaneously to inhibit an escape mechanism for the cancer. So in our practice here at Integrative Cancer Therapeutics and Advanced Medical Therapeutics, we use multiple techniques. We use pH manipulation therapy to inhibit the cancer's ability to get rid of its own acid. We use hyperbaric oxygen therapy. We use high-dose intravenous vitamin C. And we use a very interesting technique called low-dose metronomic chemotherapy. Now, a lot of people who don't like conventional treatments, when they hear chemotherapy, they say, no, 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 it's going to kill everything. Well, interestingly, the concept of chemotherapy really caters to the following. The idea is to use maximum tolerated chemotherapy, which is the maximum dose that a patient can tolerate, so we can kill as much cancer as possible without killing the patient. So it's based, unfortunately, on a faulty premise. And that faulty premise is that the more cancer we kill and the faster we kill it, the longer the patient will live. The only problem is the data doesn't support it. As a matter of fact, what we are seeing is the faster we kill a lot of tumor, generally the faster we see resistance, and often the shorter the survival. So there's a very interesting concept. The concept is to use low-dose metronomic chemotherapy, like a metronome where you give it weekly, in small doses. And interestingly, in these low-dose chemotherapy, it is not immune inhibiting, but it actually stimulates an immune response. And there's a lot of data that shows that if we can't cure cancer at its advanced stage, if we use the concept of low-dose metronomic therapy, we can keep the disease stable, and possibly the patient can live with cancer as a chronic manageable disease, similar to what we do with HIV.
Okay.
In addition to the techniques that I've previously mentioned, we of course focus in on diet. Now, if you talk to any conventional oncologist, they will tell you, of course it doesn't matter what you eat, just eat. Eat plenty of ice cream, gain weight. Unfortunately, the data does not corroborate that information. As a matter of fact, interestingly, there is a lot of data that shows that calorie restriction slows down cancer growth. A few common diets, or a few diets that we commonly recommend in this office, are the Gerson diet, the Budwig diet, and the ketogenic diet. We certainly cater the diet to the cancer. The ketogenic diet is a very interesting diet because not only do we recommend calorie restriction with it, but most of the intake is fat, but it's good fat, with a very small percentage being carbohydrates and protein. In addition to that, I think most of us are fans of the Budwig diet, and two of the reasons why we are is because of the content of both flaxseed and flaxseed oil. Certainly the lignans in the flaxseed and the alpha-linolenic acid in the oil are very cancer inhibitory. So we certainly are we stress very much to our cancer patients how to eat. It's a very important part of what we do. In addition, nutraceuticals are very important. Most of the conventional doctors will say that only the pharmaceutical drugs are effective, but it is amazing how many nutraceuticals in therapeutic doses, which is larger than most people realize, are extremely cancer inhibitory. We also commonly use immune stimulating cocktails containing natural ingredients. So I do want to emphasize to everybody how important it is to use not only some conventional techniques, but also non-conventional techniques. The idea, once again, is that we'll throw in the kitchen sink if necessary. We use everything that works. So what I do is I combine all these techniques in my office. And in addition, we do also sometimes leave the country because we do experimental techniques, especially combining different types of ablation therapy, such as radiofrequency ablation or cryoablation, and we combine that with the most exciting new immunotherapy techniques where we actually inject immune stimulating drugs directly into the cancer. So certainly over here at Advanced Medical Therapeutics and Integrative Cancer Therapeutics, we are on the cutting edge, and I'm excited to offer our treatments to everybody out there. And I have to thank you all for your generous donation and just to be here and to listen to what I have to say. So we started a nonprofit called RICTRI, which stands for Rosenberg Integrative Cancer Treatment and Research Institute. And where would your wonderful donations go? Well, your donations would go to two places. Number one, many of the techniques we use are expensive, and insurance companies don't pay for this. And so, of course, not all patients can afford our therapies, even though we take care of many patients at no cost. We can only do that so much. So many of your wonderful donations will go to taking care of individuals who can't otherwise afford this treatment. And number two, some of the monies will also be going to further my research until such time as we are funded and actually can apply to the FDA for investigational new drug status. So that is where your money would be going, and it is so appreciated, and I say that from the bottom of my heart, as well as I know from the bottom of all my patients' hearts. In my office, when I am finished, we will shortly be introducing a couple of the patients that I think will open your eyes to some of the techniques we've been doing, and you'll be able to see that these are wonderful people that have not succumbed to their advanced stage disease, but are living with cancer. I think that wraps up what I have to say, and I want to thank you all very much for all of your support. Once again, I apologize that I can't be with you physically, but I am there with you all in spirit. Thank you again.
Hi, my name is Cheryl Mancini, and I have been coming to Dr. Rosenberg's office now for 5 years. I have lung cancer, and when I was diagnosed 5 years ago, I did the traditional or conventional therapy, which didn't work because when it came back, it mutated into something worse. They gave me about 3 months to live, and now I'm in his program. And when I first started, I couldn't get out of bed. I had to hire a driver, I had to hire people to cook for me and to care for me because I was that sick. Where you can see today, it's only been a couple of months and I'm doing great, and most of my tumors, because of him, have gone away with his alternative treatments. The staff here and everybody is great. I've watched patients come in a wheelchair and I watch them walk out. They're all doing wonderful, and they're doing whatever protocols that he puts the patients on. Dr. Rosenberg has me on many different supplements. He also has me in the hyperbaric chamber. We do some IV therapy, and we do some other low-dose chemo, which I was not a fan of, but we needed to start doing something because my tumors were so aggressive. And I haven't been sick since we started this treatment on any of the medicines he's given me, or any of the therapies that he's given me. I go into the hyperbaric chamber 3 or 4 times a week, and we get all kinds of different IV therapies. We also have a great nutritionist here that helps us, keeps us on track with what we need to eat. We stay away from sugars, and we have different diets that we have to be on, which is part of his protocol also. I feel great. I'm able to do things. I can drive now. I can cook. I can go to the store. I went shopping. I took my son's girlfriend to the mall and bought her some clothes last week. Dr. Rosenberg constantly monitors my labs and what's going on with me, that I don't even ask him anything because I trust him so much that I don't worry about it. I mean, I'm able to do things, I'm feeling great, and life is going on as normal.
My name is Mary Nesbitt, and I'm a 62-year-old woman who is here today because of Dr. Mark Rosenberg and his staff. My journey began about 5 years ago, in August of 2010, when, after ignoring some signs that I shouldn't have, a typical visit to the gynecologist showed an abnormal pap smear, and then a biopsy showed the C word, cancer. It was decided I needed surgery, which I did. It was a radical hysterectomy with a oophorectomy. That day, August 5th of 2010, my life changed. The results from that operation showed severe metastatic disease, and I was considered stage 4 from that point, a number which I hate to this day. Of course, I got a second opinion, because the first one told me that, well, I think you better make plans, Mayor. It's August, I don't think you're going to make it to Christmas. It was terribly invasive in my body. Alternative was, with very, very aggressive chemotherapy, we might be able to get you a year, we might. And then there's so many improvements in research and so on in that year, maybe we'll get you another year. But a little backdrop to this is my mom died in my arms from lung cancer before this. So I wasn't too apt to go in for traditional chemotherapy. There's a difference between quality and quantity. And I just prayed to make the right response for me. I did get a second opinion, and a third, and a fourth, and a fifth. And they all agreed with the time frame and what the results were, except one doctor. He said I was probably closer to Thanksgiving. I didn't like that doctor. During that time, my sister, through research, and because of what happened to my mom, she was very determined to find an alternative for me. And she did. It was through her efforts that she found Dr. Mark Rosenberg. And I'll tell you, at that point, it was probably mid-September, so I was getting closer to my finish line, according to traditional doctors. I wasn't too apt to go see him, but she convinced me, and it was the best decision of my life, and I mean my life. I met with him. I found him kind, compassionate, caring, intelligent. He had to dumb everything down for me so I could understand what he was saying, but he offered me what I would consider a common sense approach alternative to what the traditional standard of care was. And I went home that night, I prayed on it, spoke to the family, and I started treatment with Dr. Rosenberg in September of 2010. Within 12 weeks of my coming to him, he had my tumor markers down into the average range, the normal range. I went back to work, and I was on an oral regimen. Amazing, amazing protocol. He offered me life. He's given me 5 years, well, God and he have given me 5 years that I would never have had. Christmases, I've seen my eldest granddaughter graduate from high school. I taught my middle granddaughter how to drive, which may or may not have been a good decision. We're not sure about that yet. And I saw my little Ashley Brooke graduate in her little cabin gown from kindergarten. Life experiences and memories I would not have had if I was not in Dr. Mark Rosenberg's care. I am convinced of that. God gave me the wisdom to come here and gave him the intelligence to treat people in an alternative, kind, caring, compassionate manner. And he's offered so much hope to what was a hopeless stage, and help to the helpless. And if you're looking for someone, a body, a face that you can place to his alternative methods, I'm it. And I'm just one of many, thank God, and there are more, and I hope there are more still. It's been a very unusual 5 years. It truly has. Dr. Rosenberg and his incredible staff, who I love and pray for dearly, they're in my heart and my prayers. They're my family here. I look forward to coming here, which may sound crazy, but it's the truth. He has me on metronomic or fractionated chemotherapy, alternative methods including pH manipulation, hyperbaric, nutraceuticals, pharmaceuticals. He covers every gamut that he possibly can to help me and people like me. The ones who were given a very short expiration date from the traditional doctors. If it weren't for the alternative doctors, and in particular Dr. Mark Rosenberg, I would not be here. I would not be. That's the basis of it. I love this man dearly. I pray that his work is able to continue and expand and help other people the way that he has helped me. He has a remarkable staff, remarkable caring people. Each one is dedicated every day to do something to save my life, and I put my life in their hands willingly. On a positive, much more positive note, because I'm trying not to be too emotional, results are good, things are looking up, and I'm going to get back in and teach my middle granddaughter to drive a little bit better, and I'm looking forward to seeing my youngest granddaughter graduate high school and college, and with Dr. Mark Rosenberg's help and folks like you to help continue the availability to folks who would not be able to sit here and talk to you. I thank you all. Dr. Rosenberg, I hold you in my heart every night, as well as every member of your fantastic staff. I love you. You're my doctor, you're my healer, you're my health practitioner, and I'm blessed to call you my friend. God bless you, and thank you.